Now we're gonna, let's see, be gentle. That's what I'm telling myself, be gentle. Get on my spectacles. I think we're gonna go with like a creamy, milky, fleshy skin color. Like that. Yellow, brown, red. Let's add some green. Remember, green is your friend with skin. Green is your friend with skin. Even a little blue is your friend with skin. Alright. That's a little, just seeing how it lines up. If anything, I want it to be, yeah, there we go. It's just a little, added a little more blue. That's good, I'm gonna start with that. Added a little liquid. And then, oh shit. And then, the plan is to do the two brush, so you have your paint on this brush, and then you got your dry brush here. Let's try, see how we do. Gotta start somewhere, so let's see where we are. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we need. It's kind of in the middle, leaning a little darker. No, it might be a little, let's see. Not a lot of paint on the brush. Don't get carried away. You kind of always have to remind yourself that over and over again. Some of it is like habitual, so you just have a system. But there's a couple artists that have followed over the years, and I see them put paint on the brush like this, and then wipe it off first, like literally wipe it on their rag. So it's kind of like really the opposite, meaning like you're just adding elements a little bit at a time. And when I saw them wiping it off on the rag after putting paint on, like I was like, what? It blew my mind. That was kind of a breakthrough that happened a while ago now, but it's still I still remember seeing that. I still remember going, holy cow, holy moly. You put paint on the brush and then wipe off the brush? Unbelievable. And so I picked up that technique immediately. I guess it's counterintuitive because you think, oh, well, if I wipe off the brush, there's no paint on the brush. Well, no, quite the contrary. There's enough on that brush. Like this brush, I've wiped it off, and now I'm going back to my painting, and there's just the right amount to make the marks that I need to make. Mm-hmm. And it's subtly just a couple little notches on the value chart brighter than the previous layer, which is a good place to be. Nothing too extreme. Look, I haven't put more paint on this brush yet. Like there's just so much, that's kind of the magic of oil. Huge, like this would be a really like dramatic point when kind of just showing the differences between acrylics and oils. I've been brushing with the same small brush for 3 minutes after it's been wiped off. That is very, consequential, a very defining difference between oils and acrylics. And when I'm at this stage, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking to go back to my palette every 13 seconds. Again, same technique, put paint on the brush and then wipe off the paint. If something's too strong, you just dry brush it, smooth it in. A deformed hand, yeah. A deformed hand. I've actually wanted to paint a hand portrait for a long time. I thought I was gonna paint like a tattoo, like gang tattoo hands. I found a couple portraits or photos of kind of like old gang hands, and I thought that was interesting. And then I remembered our old friend. I'm like, oh, what happens if I enhance his hand? I think we're a little bit off on that shape, but I really like how he's coming together because I'm kind of trying to convince you that this is the proper hand, even though it's probably not. It's a bit of an interpretation of the infamous strong hand. Then I thought, okay, maybe this is just a gang sign. And you know the Yakuza hands, they're missing digits. Hands tell stories. I'm not that obsessed with them, but I do like them. And they're a different challenge and different set of needs to accomplish anything decent. It's kind of like hair. If I try to do hair quickly, I can really get derailed. Hands are similar, but once you kind of just like, okay, I'm gonna paint hair, and if it takes all day, then so be it. And if it takes all week, so be it. Same with hand. If you kind of set out, okay, I'm gonna paint a hand, I find it to be a little easier mentally to kind of tackle it. Because I'll spend so long on facial features, whether it's to get the proportions or to get something that I like, and I'll just keep going over and over again. And then if I have a hand in that portrait, it gets not even like a third of the energy or the effort. But if I just dedicated an entire painting to a hand, well, now that's kind of a different challenge. Like that, I was pretty excited to attempt that this week. All right, okay. There you go. Wow. Slow burn, still using glazes, like there's liquid in here. Probably like 50-50, 50% paint, 50% liquid. And you can see I kind of think I have a completely dry brush. This is a little too strong, so I'm gonna pull some of it off. You see how forgiving that is? I can't go over that enough. The forgiving elements of like, if I just put it in too much, you can take it away. And if I want to take it away completely, so I know I put a little mineral spirit on here, all of that paint is now almost all gone. There might be a little bit behind. So now we're into the three brush. This is a completely clean brush with some mineral spirit. This is my paintbrush, and this is my quote-unquote dry blending brush. Now I'm just trying to get all the details into place, not so much, I'm not messing around with the bones of the hand or the layout or the composition, but I am starting to go, okay, this line is a little thinner here. Details. Details. And that's definitely a slow process, because there's no need to rush, and the better the pace you have, the better the results. So I'm not a huge advocate for like a really slow burn. I don't want this to last 3 months. I only have so much gas in the tank for today, basically, for this piece. So this piece will get today, and that's about it. So whatever details I can get in there today, I'm calling it. Because my brain wants to move on already. That's how she works. I have other ideas cooking. I just marinate over ideas and contemplate ideas while I'm painting. So it's like a cycle. I come up with ideas, and I paint them, and then I come up with more ideas while I'm painting. That's how it works. And they're very powerful ideas, so meaning like they have enough to get me excited about starting a new panel, a new canvas. Okay. I am Ivor. Well, I appreciate that. I like that deep insight, I am Ivor, because you said it, not me. But I do appreciate it, and I think so. Like, I'm sitting in front of an easel all day, every day. So I think there are some deeper meanings in certain things, and sometimes there's not. But even when there's not a deeper meaning, there's still energy around bringing a painting to life. So it's natural to pull out meaning from it, and sometimes I can just end up pontificating, trying to find meaning, and sometimes there's clearly a deeper meaning there. But when someone else kind of points it out, it makes it a little easier for me to digest. Because if I started building stories around this, sometimes it can feel a little bit conceited or pompous. But when I read or hear your interpretations, it's a lot easier for me to go, yeah, there's some truth there, and that makes sense. Yeah, like this hand is based on a joke, just for some of those who aren't. There's a movie from when I was younger, and it's a bit of an acquired taste. It's just kind of slapstick humor. But the hand became like a meme, and it just never went away, and it stuck with people. And I thought it needed to dedicate some energy to it. I just felt like, okay, if you're gonna paint a hand, I don't feel like painting like a gang hand. Like I said, it's not really my first choice. But what other hands have a story? What other hands have meaning to me? And I always lean towards humor and like satire. That's kind of what makes my pieces exciting to attack in the morning. I like the little silly stories that go with them. And sometimes you create something and then the meaning comes along with it. The meaning wasn't thought about in advance. And a lot of the time I really believe that people like you, I am Ivor, give things the meaning and add the meaning to it. As an onlooker, you kind of, there's an art form in that as well. Helping artists create stories from their work is very appreciated. Because again, if I start telling you the deep meanings behind this, it's very contrived, and it can become as pretentious is the word I'm looking for. But when someone else says it, I get to just ride those coattails without feeling like a jackass. And then sometimes I will tell you the meaning, and then you have to like stand behind that if there's something that's really important to me. Okay, I really like this color that is happening now. This color that's happening now is very delicious. And that's kind of just mixing your palette as you go along. But this color here is working for me. First time in this whole painting where the color that I'm holding on my brush is kind of exactly what I'm looking for. So all the other colors prior, not quite it, believe it or not. I work with them, you just keep going. Work with the values, and right now I'm hitting the color I want. It might not even be noticeable on camera. They're very similar. But it's just in between the in-betweens. It's in between the in-betweens. So when I put lines here, it just works better. Like kind of in-betweens, the in-betweens. Go a little darker, yes sir. Now the darker in betweens. Ooh. Ooh. Think back in the day, like when you would see shadows, for me for sure, and I've seen it in other work. I'm not everyone's like this, but when you see like, you don't see the nuance, you just see like black and white, and you see the harsh contrast of like so I like when there, I remember just like when there'd be line, like very faint, subtle lines, you just put like black streaks, right, to like represent those lines. In a way, that's a starting point. It's not bad. It's just, then you realize, oh my God, it's just, it's so much brighter than I really understood. It's such a brighter value, but it just looks dark compared to its surroundings. That took a long time to grasp that kind of idea. Because you see lines, so you put the lines and you assume it's a dark line, but it's not. They're just subtly lighter or darker values than the layers surrounding it. And you kind of only really experience that by just trying that out. Like, okay, what can I get away with? Like these highlight kind of like little marks in the skin are not white. Some are, yes, but in general they're not. They're just a couple of values a little brighter. That's it. They just look bright white, but they're not. So that kind of practice goes throughout the entire painting. And you see when I put on this brighter value here, I'm pulling it this way with the dry brush. The shadows, the light's coming here. Here and here. And then there's shadow here. Okay. Same idea too, remind yourself, slow down, calm down, it's fine. I want to build this up. You can't build the floor above you when you're on the, like, you know, the floor underneath, right? Like, don't get ahead of yourself, what I'm saying there. But I do want to put brighter values to see where I am landing is the darkest and currently the highest value. Not highlights, just brighter values. This also helps me form, get the right, like, smaller shapes in check. Some of them will end up being the highlights, funny enough, but it's not the main focus. A good hand? No, I don't get inspired by like kind of the status quo. I'm also not like a dedicated limb painter. I just felt like painting something different. But if I had to paint just my own hand or like a pretty hand that I found on Google, I don't wake up in the morning and get excited about that. I like the nuanced in the bizarre, the oddity, and the I just really appreciate it, and I think it stands out. And sometimes I can get carried away, and I think it can be almost off-putting for many of you. But for me, it's what makes me tick. It's the kind of the strange, and I do try to balance strange with satire and like story, and again, a nice hand. I've actually have a few source images of hands that are covered in tattoos that look like old gang member hands. I think there's story there. I've also seen some great artists paint large scale hands. That's really cool. But again, even those have like rings and have stories, but just a simple hand, unless there was like some sort of significant ring that I was trying to highlight, like a ring that tells a story, maybe that would be interesting. But again, we're almost too nuanced for me. I kind of like in your face, striking imagery. That's what I get off on. It's like something that's striking and not necessarily dark or scary, but just strike, like, whoa, that's wild. That's why it's not a normal hand. But when I see like a portrait of a hand that's like, you know, masterfully done, I get off on that. I really appreciate the art and the skill that went into that. And I always ask, like, the question is, what would you hang on your wall? What do you want on your wall? And I wouldn't want just a painting of a hand on my wall. I would want this on my wall. And the truth is, this might end up hanging on my wall for eternity. And that's why I'm painting it, right? Like if you're stuck with your art forever, you should probably be painting what you want. And I think I stand behind that more than like a gift. You don't paint a gift for somebody that's something that you don't want. Try to find a happy medium, middle ground. You know what I mean? I am Ivor. I like it. Yeah. You don't need to laugh, man. Like, I think the older I get, the less conflict I'm trying to involve myself in. Because there's a lot of things where I'm just the same as I'm just mediocre, and then there's places where I excel and where I'm different. And I see that in other people too. There's places where they're just the same as everybody else, even people I really admire, and then there's places where they just really excel and are above the fray, above the rest of their contemporaries and people. But yeah, now when I'll get criticism and stuff that's pretty fun to go through, and I just really try to not inflame it when someone's really upset with me or there's something where I touch a nerve. I don't really try to inflame it anymore. I just appreciate the fact that they were so put off by it. I think that comes with age. That's easier said than done, but as I get older, I don't have the energy to argue. I see my news feeds and my social media, especially on YouTube, is all arguing all the time, which, you know, I enjoy. I enjoy a good debate, but that's not what I do. And I flip-flop all the time too. You hear like something that's oh, that sounds interesting. And then you hear a counter argument, I'm like, oh, that sounds even more interesting. So I try to be well-rounded in that regard. Let me hear the best of the best. when it comes to arguments. Well, also just being like a casual observer. And then I feed off of kind of where the state of the world is. I think I'm not immune to that. When there's a lot of trouble, or there's troubling news cycles, or things are heavy, which I'd say we're in a place where the world seems pretty heavy these days. It plays a toll on my work. I think that's why I always just lean to comedy, where it's like, I know that it's gonna upset a few people, but maybe I can and stories, I like stories because everyone can kind of interpret it differently and leaves room for as many people as I can. This kind of work, obviously, kind of shutting the door on certain people. They just don't want a grotesque kind of hand that's mangled and stuff. I get that. I'm just not the artist for you. Now, because I've been painting how long? 30 minutes. The layers that I put on originally, like 30 minutes ago, they'll start getting a little tacky. And that's really, I say this kind of every time, but that's my favorite place to paint. Because the paint, when I apply it, holds differently than when it's fresh and like wet. But the tacky layers underneath you start to feel it under the brush. And that is my favorite place to paint, with a little resistance. So when I put down the paint on the panel, it's a little bit, it's not smooth, it's not difficult, it's like, it just makes the brush a little tighter, makes each pull and push has a little resistance, and it's really beautiful to work with. Why is because I make the most gains when it comes to like kind of texture and details. And that's really hard to kind of convey into a message, but the liquid adds tack over as it's kind of drying, and it's just a really enjoyable place to paint. And I just was feeling it's not completely there, but I just started to feel a little bit of tackiness in my brush strokes. Like it's almost like painting on like a drying glue. You know what's that PVC glue, the white glue? As it starts to dry, it gets a little tacky. And man, I love painting in that zone. And you get there faster by thin layers that you just build up. You can start kind of descending from the reference photos. Start doing your own thing, your own little details. Make it your own. Just kind of lose yourself, and because when you're going like small and easy and gentle, I'm not making any critical decisions here. Just little details. How's everyone doing out there? So now I'm gonna play with colors again. We're gonna go, I want like a ready, I think we're even gonna add a little orange to make this just like a little orange. I mean, almost untraceable. And my oranges are very powerful. The orange pigment is very strong. And I add some red, add some liquid, not too much. Same concept. You have your paintbrush, wipe it off, and then you have your dry brush. So here's where I wanted this orange. How does it look? Keep going. Yeah, I think that helps. I don't think it does much actually, but it's doing something. Let's see what it, keep going. It's kind of just a transition from like the mauve pink, like the purpley pink, red. A bit of like I want to play in that world. So instead of the highlight side, we're going on the shadow side and just pulling in some more colors there. And if it's not really working, I'm gonna move on. I just saw in the photo, I thought I saw some orange. And I don't think too much, just paint. And then either fix it or go with it. And you see I'm kind of going in the middle between the different values, the darks and the lighter colors. I'm trying to merge them together. Again, that's part of my logic, bringing in some of the orange. I don't want the orange to take away from the paint. I don't really like orange. It's not my favorite color. But I think in flesh, there's so many little nuances. That's also really fun. So you can get away with, like, I can get away with adding purples and pinks and like literally greens. Let's add a little green. I always like, when in doubt, just add some green. Not joking. So I just added green to my orange. Love it. I'm not joking. I'm really, like, yeah, like that green now made it a real flesh color. These oranges before, not quite like, they're interesting and they'll probably stay, but not doing it for me. I added some green. Now we're cooking. Wow. It's funny when you listen to like somebody talk about art. If you're not interested, it sounds like I'm a lunatic. But when you're painting, you get it. When I was growing up, art was not on the table, was not in the cards. But it wasn't on the bingo card. Art found me later on, and kind of feel like that's good. Same with like writing. Writing is a lot easier when you have something to write about. Painting is a lot easier when you have something to paint. And then you want to combine that idea with like skill. You've seen like when you get somebody who's really like a dark painter and they have skill, those are always like really fascinating to me. Because they're willing to expose like the side of themselves that's very, like, they're gonna get a lot of flack when you see like really almost like dangerous art because it's so aggressive. And I probably do some stuff like that once in a while, probably a few times a year. I'll pump out something that's like really intentionally disturbing or angry even, but I usually know when I paint that, I'm just going to be stuck with that forever. And I paint it anyway. I think that's what I was thinking about when I see other people that do that, especially large scale. We're going back darker. So this is not black, but it is like a dark value. Now you also get to a place where like a lot of the majority of this piece has paint on it now. So you just want to be aware of that. It's either use that to your advantage or stay away from areas that need to be left alone. One cool thing is like I'm starting to get better at seeing other imagery and it took me a long time to see another, like a reference photo, and then mimic it and copy it accurately. Oh, that took for so long. I used to do a lot of, what helped me was a lot of gridding in the beginning. That was a really great tool. I still huge advocate for it because I really think you can make some really great progress with gridding. Even tracing, huge advocate for stuff like that, because I think if you use it as a tool, that's only going to advance your skills. A huge advocate. Like I remember I was tracing the Transformer helmets, and then after I traced it one time, I didn't need to trace it again. And I'm not even saying that's you need to do that like that, but for me, I wanted to. I'm glad I traced it because then I kind of got the idea, I got the feel for it, and then after that, I'm like, oh, I don't need to trace it anymore. It's not necessary. I kind of done it, so it was a really good way to advance, especially that subject matter. Get good at it. Yeah, gang symbols. That's kind of what I was thinking about the naming of this painting. It's like gang signs. Totally on that wavelength, yes, gang signs. It actually still might be titled that. Also, a loose grip on reality. Typically stay away from on the nose kind of commentary, like just calling it strong hand, or that's not usually how my brain likes to work, unless it's something obscure that I want to really clarify. But this, I'm really okay if you think it's a gang sign or you think it's just a morbid image of a hand, or if you kind of put two and two together about the strong hand. That's kind of an older joke these days. It's got to be, what, 20 years old? At least, right? Oh my God. 20 years. But man, did that joke hit and last a long time. Yeah, sometimes I think I like to put energy around like jokes and things that are in, pop culture, putting energy around them. And a good example was I was painting Elizabeth Berkley. Painted her a couple times from Showgirls and Saved by the Bell. I think there's so much story around that. I really like stories, and then I think that inspires me to paint things with a lot of story, or at least you can build from it. remember this guy also played a character in Something About Mary, which is like another classic. He had like a skin problem in Something About Mary. That's all I kind of remember. But he was in, what other movies was this guy in? He was like, he ruled the 90s. He was in a lot of things back in the day. I don't remember what else. I haven't seen him for a while. So let's put some darker back into my orange and red. We're gonna come out of the shadow. So I was pretty hard into the shadow side there, almost black, more of like a blacky brown. Then we're gonna pull into a dark red. That's a little too bright though. It's not a gradual. So let's go more gradual. Get your dry brush, get your brush right. It might not be a big area, but you just want things to gradually work together. Unless there's a dramatic shift. But it's in your best interest to make things gradual, subtle. And if you're too dramatic, you just blend it a bit. Work it in. And then see where you land. But subtle and gradual. You don't want you want things to be cool. Think about it as cool. Don't get carried away. And that gradual kind of gradient might not be like, kind of tend to think like it slowly gets brighter or darker, like on that line, on that curve. Sometimes that happens just in one little area. The brightness and the darkness contrast dramatically in a certain area. Sometimes there's no gradient at all, it just like hits you. But in general, you want to be cool. You want to be cool. Cool with your transitions, cool with your gradients. Because before here you saw it, I was too bright. It was too dramatic and not in the right areas. Like it's not helping me, not serving me. Kind of just picking away at things, you see, just like putting some definition. Kind of like some shadow here. Yeah, I know. Me when I try to draw my hand, yeah. Hands are, I was saying this already, but if you dedicate some sessions to hair and hands, for me it takes a lot of dedication. It doesn't come easy. Hands and hair are something I need to like almost have a different mindset for. And the best way I can explain is like I put a lot of energy into faces, and I'll spend a lot of time on the face, and then I will pay little attention to hair and hands. But when I set out to paint just a hand like this, I'm putting like the same amount of detail that I would in a face, and then I feel like I can kind of get it done. Same with like hair. I almost need to dedicate like a day to hair if I'm gonna get it right. There's some really cool techniques with hair that I've seen some artists do that I think they've mastered, and so it makes hair like come together really easy. For me, that's still kind of not the case. Hair is something that like needs dedication and almost even like a game plan, as dramatic as that sounds. Hand, the same thing. It's like, okay, I can paint a hand, I know I can, but I need to isolate it and give it the time it needs in order to, if I only gave it like a little bit of time, then all of a sudden like I would say I'm not very good at hands. But if I'm gonna spend a couple days, which I'm doing on this piece, well, let's see how it comes out. I think if I give it the same amount of detail and energy that I do with faces, I feel pretty confident I can get something that I like. So that's kind of my theory on things that I find challenging with painting is like, okay, if I have a strategy for attacking the hair, which I really think sometimes it really needs, like a game plan. Okay, first I'm gonna do this, then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna keep working, then I'm gonna give it the time it needs. Otherwise, hair can be such like a turn off, like, oh man, everything, like the hair. But when the hair's done right, it can kind of almost it's almost as important as eyes, like the eyes of a painting. In this case, I don't know what the focal point is. Like, there's this. I'm trying to think. Like, I'll make like certain extreme details, almost like very like a lot smaller, delicate brush strokes in certain areas to bring attention to something. I think it's just all in these highlighted areas. So I just slowly bring them out. Oil paint, yeah. But first layers were acrylic. I draw with acrylic, so most artists and practitioners will draw something out. A lot of artists will just paint, but in general you draw something out in pencil and map everything out. I do that with acrylics, especially over the last couple of years. I draw with acrylics, like I literally treat it like that's how I map everything out, and I treat it like a pencil drawing to get where like, and so I took a day or a good portion of the day mapping my hand out, which I don't know, I never did a live video for this one, but I have other videos where I map things out with my acrylic paint first, and I treat that as an underbody, and I treat it as my drawing, like two in one. And I just find I'm a much better drawer with acrylic paint. But the only way for me to get my shape of this hand is to draw it out and then make sure that drawing's good and everything's in the right spot, or at least where I want it. And sometimes it's just a starting point, and sometimes it's I dedicate a lot of time to the getting everything right before I move to oils. And now we're into the oils. And when I look at the hand references, there's all these creases and crevices, and still staying away from like extreme highlights. There's no need to get ahead of the game. It'll really pull the painting together when I start adding them. Maybe I'll try to keep you guys on here for that, but that might happen later today. I think we also all have a tendency to get too excited with highlights. It can actually take away from the piece. You want to be selective and accurate. Not accurate, you want it to be good. And in order to be good with highlights, you want to slow down and calm down. You get more details actually with like this part in the painting where I'm just making these little lines in the hands. I start mixing in different paints because here's my palette. You can see the different fleshes. There's my liquid, and then there's all the colors I've been using today. And when I just was talking about mixing different, look at all the reds, the purple flesh, the greens. Remember I added green, and the darks. There it is. So now I'm just playing with all those colors. I'm playing with all the colors. And just playing around at this point when everything's kind of in place is quite fun. So you can't really, I'm not going to change the lines right now, but I'm just going to add different colors. So there's a lot of freedom and a lot of liberties, and you know, easy to fix if I quote unquote make a mistake. But the more little nuanced colors you get in here, I think the richer the painting will end up being. And definitely the style I prefer. I want all these, like, I want, when you look at it, all is these little nuances and colors and shifts, and that's why earlier when throwing in orange, even if I wasn't really a huge fan, even of the color I mixed, or of orange in general, I want it in there though. I want that orange in there. It's only going to help the painting in the long run. even if you just see it, there's a little orange there that I put in. You kind of want to match the values in the right spots. So, but again, it's pretty forgiving. So if you kind of got the right value, just go with it, move around the painting. And now's the time for this. It's just like, as I'm doing it, like now is the time to get these variants of colors in here. Because again, I haven't moved to like highlights. I'm just kind of in the mid-tier level. So the more subtle nuance I can get in now, the better. And also kind of cleaning up some of the, making sure you give everything the attention it deserves. If some of the areas you've been neglecting, now's the time. Let's change it up. Get some color in there. Like, if it's a shockingly aggressive application, just be gentle. And just tap it. Get some paint on there and move on. You also see I'm not using like a dry brush right now because we're kind of moving in the direction of detail. All right, I just lied. Here's a dry brush. But I want these specks of color. I want the texture. And see, I'm pulling away from the dark's fine. I don't want to mess with it. But you see, I'm adding texture by adding some of this like kind of stippling, cross-hatching application of oil paint. Then, actually, let's go back the other way, so we're not going to highlights anymore. We're going to, I basically have blue, black, and a little brown, but mostly black. Mostly black, because I just want to get this right now and let it dry. Got some liquid in here, but I'm just tapping it on like the color that I was putting on earlier. You see, I'm not like brushing, like when you think like brush. No, I'm just want to pull out like the highlights. These are the shadows. Equally important, but the whole thing is not just black. That's the secret. There's just some darkness here and there. I really wanted this crease in the finger, so this is, and I don't want this whole thing to be black or very dark. Just want certain areas to be touched. Look how I'm touching it like that. Kind of mixing in with the other layer, okay? There's some darkness in here. Maybe even in here. And even at this stage, remember, if I make the shadow too dark here, I can always lighten it up with a glaze later today. Still adding texture. kind of feel like I made a mistake, so I get a totally new brush, put some medium on there, and pull that out. That's how you clean up a mistake. All this is dry, so it's really easy to tidy that up immediately. And kind of I just don't want it to look sloppy. So I just cleaned it up. That's important to me. It just feels wrong, so I just want to clean it up. That seems too aggressive. So we'll just calm it down too. Again, now is the time for these shadows. I would say as far as my timeline goes or schedule, like now is the time to put these, probably the darkest points of the painting I've done so far. Let's get those in there now. When I see a line, the whole line is not completely using this dark color. It is just pulling out some of the areas. So now I'm thinking, let's go, just add a little red and brown in here. So we're just going up, going a little brighter in value. Still very dark, but that's the nuance and subtlety, especially like really like looking at, you know, the greats, the masters. I never really paid attention earlier in my life, but as I get older, I'm more and more infatuated with how the masters will accomplish certain chiaroscuro techniques and subtlety. And it's always fun seeing stuff you're like, oh, I had no idea how they did that. I can only imagine. But normally, I think most cases, like, oh, that's a good idea. That looks really good. I'm gonna try that. At least he gives you like a direction. there's a white line in the palm of the hand. That thumb looks like your appendage. There's a white line in the palm of the hand where? Here? What about it? It's throwing you off, or? So now this whole hand has been covered over the course of the last hour. Top dark part of the hand. West side. Here? Oh no, that I think that's a hair. Let's see. I don't really want to fix it, to be honest, but I know what you're saying. Let's see. I think that's a hair. You made me do this. It's deep in there. Look what you did, you little jerk. Anybody? Anybody? That's a hair. I think some artists I have to let myself not be obsessed with that shit. Otherwise it'll drive me crazy. Look what you did, you little jerk. Anybody? Anybody? But in all fairness, because it's in the darkness, very easy to. So thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, it's a hair. I just saw it. Well, kudos. You know what? Thank you. Because in the way that I'm sitting in front of it, it's not very apparent, but obviously to you it's glaring, so we got it. Did we get it? You tell me. Did we get it? I think we got it. Yeah, if you move around the painting, especially with glazes, you can get different kind of light sources and different sort of angles. Definitely advised to do so. You know, it's the old trope of standing back and looking at your painting while sucking on your brush. Same idea. Move around, move your head around. Especially with like my light source is obviously coming this way, like my personal light source. So moving your lights around too is helpful. Good. My eyes are really hard to read. Future, war, fog. Appreciate you. I was just joking. Look what you did, you little jerk, by the way, it's from Home Alone. The mean uncle doesn't get enough love. Look what you did, you little jerk. I use that line pretty regularly. In fact, it would be good on a tombstone. Look what you did, you little jerk. Okay, we're actually going to go back to my blackest value. Because I was moving my head around, I did notice some areas that I really want to almost highlight with shadow. I want to highlight certain areas with shadow. So I want them to be like aggressive in certain areas. Right here, because it's so dark, I'm just making up things as I go along. See how they look. Remember, I can calm things down. I'm highlighting with shadow. Also unifying some things too. Some of these things over here are a little wonky. I haven't paid much attention to the, I don't really know what to do with the sleeve. The sleeve is just black, but it looks strange. So I just pretend it's not there for now. Let's go back into my color palette and play around. Let's go a little brighter though. This is like your standard flash color. I'm gonna wipe off my brush, get my dry brush. I'm just gonna dab. So these aren't quite highlights, but we're getting there. This is just like the, almost like the highest value in the hand. So it's not a highlight, but it's just like the brightest part of the hand without the highlights, if that makes sense. So we're kind of still in the mid-tier range, but we're on the highest point of it. Again, I'm applying for texture. And almost plotting out where the highlights will actually be as well. Go in different directions now. Still kind of calming down some of the areas that need to be formed. Scary Movie 2, that looks like the guy's hand from Scary Movie. Yep, it's a combination of that and gang signs. And just a weird painting. Just kind of like this white aura happening. Taking advantage of it. Now. So these like marks are just a little bit too, not quite there. Let's soften them up. We've departed some of like these hand lines from my reference photos, but they still give you some guidance as far as like how the ridges will look, even though the reference photo and the hands have to kind of, there's not really any good photos of his hand, like really realistically. They're all pretty blurry because they're old. And I looked pretty hard for like some good hand photos of that. Even like, actually I didn't look up the cosplay, I should have. I bet you can find his hand in like on Wish or Temu or something. Like Halloween. And so when you, sometimes that's a good source for like reference photos. Halloween costumes. Because someone must have made like a mold of this and then is selling it somewhere. do a little bit of a highlight here. Might be a little bit of a highlight here, like kind of the lighting. I was just thinking that maybe one way to explain it is like if you look at the hand overall, what's the most dominant color out of everything? In this case, there is like kind of a toss-up between this mid-range flesh and the dark, but as far as colors are concerned, so not the shadow, what's the most dominant color? It's somewhere in this like fleshy, kind of purpley zone. That's what I determine anyway. Oh God. Now, before I let you go, let me just show you what I mean when I say like really get a little bit loose with your colors. I just added some more green. I just want some more nuance in here, more nuances. So this is like a gray, greeny gray color. This is a good color to calm anything down that doesn't look right, or the lines look kind of like here, for example, the lines look a little aggressive or contrived, like kind of not realistic. It's good. This is a good color to calm things down. Almost like to brighten anything up and to darken something. Both, does both. And it just gives like the flesh more the word's nuance. I keep saying it, but that's the word. Variation. I also think it's still helping with the texture. It's a good color for in here, I think, too, because it's not. It might be hard, like the color combined with the value for in these deep shadows. Stop recording that. Okay. Just added a little more dark into that greeny gray. So I'm adding grays right now, like greens and grays, and for flavor. Let's try to do this. Let me see. think, against my better judgment, but just think it still needs it. Just, again, orange is not my favorite color. But I'm just going to add some glaze and some orange. And have some fun before I let this session come to a close. Got some oranges here. This is just like orange and glaze. Again, I just kind of want to show you now is the time to do this, get these colors in. Kind of having like, just show it makes things very diverse and more rich. Getting like these subtle colors in here that kind of work, that you would actually think might kind of hurt the piece, but that make things come together by adding these like flickers of color. And because it's very translucent, you can kind of work it in with some of the other work that you've been doing. Again, just to calm this kind of like certain area, like the differences between the darks and the lights, you're calming those areas, right? I'm kind of sticking in that zone. So where there's the dark and the mid and the light, I'm just going in between the dark and the mid with the glaze. Dark and the light, there's not really mid there, just going in the middle. Dark and mid zone, put some orange in there. Again, dark, mid, light. That wasn't the perfect example, but you get it. Dark, mid, light. Even in the whites here, you see, like it almost makes more sense to add this orange there than sometimes than what you think. Okay, let's go red. This is just now red into the mix, so it's very quite strong, but there's some glaze there. Now I'm going to move, I think that's a little too strong, so let me just move that around a little bit. But I'm just getting in like these little variations of color. Again, probably a little too strong. Sometimes they go in the right place, and sometimes they kind of don't, but they still work together. And you can get carried away. I just felt like I just had a flash where like, okay, calm down. Enough playing around, enough with these colors. It's good. It's just something that I kind of like spontaneously wanted to explain, and I typically do it with most of my pieces. I'll add not random, but random colors. Oh, another good one. Here's it. Wait, I gotta do it one more time. Ready? Here we go. So now what we're doing, I'm gonna play with this, which totally the same premise. Might be a little more selective where they go, but these are kind of just. We're going with, now I have a blue. I don't know if you can see that, but now I'm going blue. Kind of, it seems to be more in the highlighted areas. like the brighter areas. So let's get the blue there. Here. Maybe in some of those creases. Finger creases. Let's add some blue here. Almost when you kind of don't know what color to put. Adding like random colors is fun. It's fun. They're almost like veins, right? Now that I see that, it's kind of like some of the, but that's the skid, that's the fun of skid, is they have all these like colors happening. Veins and the blood running through your veins. Again, I know for a fact I can get too carried away with this, but in a weird way, it's very difficult because, maybe what I'm saying is I can get carried away with this because it's really enjoyable, because it kind of really makes the, I'm not lying when I say it's fun. Because you can start to like, and then by doing that though, then you can get carried away with it. But you see how subtle it is, but then all of a sudden it's there. Subtle or not, it's there. But this is just light blue. Here, I'll show you again. It's got some liquid, right, which is just your clear medium. So it makes things translucent. It's also working with some of the paint that I've been putting down all morning. If your pace is right, you kind of hard to overdo it, because you can kind of stop at any time. You're not losing your mind when you're doing it. But sometimes when I stop and look, I'm like, okay, it's too much blue in there. So, you know, that's it. All right, I'm leaving you. Hold on, let me use my good hand, strong hand. All right, until next time, see ya.